Hi everyone. In this video, I'm going to show you how to analyze data across different levels and perform a two-way ANOVA in GraphPad Prism. I'm using Prism version 10.2, and to clarify what I mean by data across levels, if we look at the example that I have set up here, I'm showing data from two different groups, Group A, which is my control, and Group B, which is my treatment. I have 12 trials that were collected across 4 days, so each day has 3 trials, and we can choose to either look at this data across our 12 trials or across our 4 days. Looking at the data across trials would give us a finer and more variable look at this information, while looking at the data across days would give us a broader view and less variable perspective of the data. Whichever one you choose depends on the type of data that you're looking at. For example, this is pretty typical for mouse behavior experiments in neuroscience, where you could extract slightly different information depending on whether you look at trials or days. And to analyze the data as is, so across our 12 trials, we just go to Analyze, and under Grouped Analyses, click on Two-Way ANOVA. Prism automatically selects our two groups here. Since in this case we're looking at data across time, we would check this box here, indicating that each row represents a different time point. And since we're choosing to include an interaction term here, we would then go to multiple comparisons, and I personally like to select this one here, comparing each cell mean with the other cell means in that row, and this will give us an idea of whether specific trials in our data are showing differences, rather than looking at differences across all trials. For data collected across time, it's always important to remember to include time as a variable in your data and to look for any potential interactions that could occur. So in this case, our column factor, which is our group, has a significant interaction with time, meaning that the groups differ depending on the specific time point that we're looking at. Prism will automatically generate this plot here, but I like to change the setup of the graph. So if you just double click on the graph, you can change graph type and toggle whatever it is that you want to show here. I usually prefer this connecting line with standard error of the mean as the error bars, and you can change around the other parameters as usual. Double clicking on the x-axis will allow you to change the range and interval. I think the plot looks nicer when you start at 0.5 and go 0.5 beyond your maximum trial number. So in our case, it would be 12.5. Major ticks would be 1, and you would start X at 1. So I personally think it looks nicer this way. You can also change around the colors or the symbols that represent your groups. Now, if we go back to our original spreadsheet, now if we want to look at the data across days instead of trials, you can right-click the data table here and duplicate current sheet. There might be better ways to do this, but this is what I have found to be the easiest and fastest way. So now that we have a copy of our original spreadsheet, you can go ahead and delete everything that is not day 1. So I should mention that here we're setting up just day 1 of our data. Now you want to go to Analyze, and under Column Analyses, click on Descriptive Statistics. I usually just go with all of the default settings, but you can of course change them as you see fit. And this will just calculate the mean of all the values from day 1 for each group. So you go back and do the same thing for each of the other days. One trick I like to do is to keep all of them before you duplicate the next day, and I'll show you what I mean. So if we're setting up for day 2 now, before you go ahead and delete everything that isn't day 2, you can click on Analyze and Descriptive Statistics before deleting everything else. And now, since this number will automatically update depending on what is in your linked spreadsheet. Again, before deleting, you would right click and now duplicate family instead of duplicate current sheet. And that will duplicate this descriptive statistics panel for your new copy data. So going back to the original day 2, we can now delete everything outside of day 2. I like to just move this up like so. And now this is supposedly day 3, but we already have our descriptive statistics sheet ready to go. Doing the same thing for day 4, we're going to duplicate family and keep all of our data so that it's easier to delete. Hopefully that makes sense. I'm just going to rename this so we don't get confused. And now we can delete everything outside of day 3. Same thing for day 4. Okay, now that we have all of our days set up, we can go ahead and create a new data table. And in this case, you don't want to enter replicate values like in our other spreadsheets, but instead you want to enter and plot only the mean, standard deviation, and sample size. And to fill in the data here, you go back to day 1, descriptive statistics, and this is the key here. Instead of just the traditional way of copy and pasting, you're going to copy the mean here and then paste link, so that if you make any changes to this sheet in day 1, it'll automatically update whatever this mean value is in your linked sheet here. So I'm going to go ahead and rename this data across days. All right, so you do the exact same thing for your other group. Copy and paste link. Go back. It's a little bit time consuming, but once everything is linked, you save a lot of time from having to go back and change all your values every time you add in a new sample. So you do the same thing for all of your days. I'm just going to speed up here. You know it's working when these sheets become bolded when you're in the linked data sheet. So that's a good way of checking whether you are pasting the linked values or not.
A few moments later.
Entering our sample size, we have 3 for each day. And now instead of trial, we have day 1, 2, 3, and 4. And Prism will again generate automatically this plot here. We don't actually have a day 5, so I'm just going to do the same thing I did before and adjust the range here. And to make it look similar to our trial graph, I'm just going to set the same settings that we did before. If you want to update the legend automatically, you can just go back and set your group names here, and that will automatically change what's on the plot. And to do the two-way ANOVA, it's the same steps as before. Click on Analyze, Grouped Analyses, two-way ANOVA, and the same settings as before. So this will give you different p-values. So depending on which method is better for your data, you can try them out and see which one makes the most sense. If anybody knows a better way to do this, please comment below. I'd love to know how other people are approaching different levels of data. But that's pretty much it for this video. I hope this was helpful for you and your work. Please leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed the content, and I'll see you in the next video.